The loud sound of the Nakajima B-5N plane fills Fua's headset as he flies at 10,000 feet, going around what should be his big victory. Down below, Pearl Harbor turns into a fire and smoke disaster. The smoke goes so high he can see it bend. In the upper wind, maybe 20,000 feet or more. A tall black column can be seen all the way from Hawaii to the open sea. The ship Arizona burns so strong that even from 2 miles above he can see the metal glowing red where its top part used. To stand 1,100 men are down there burning or already dead. The Oklahoma has turned over completely its shell, covered in barnacles shining in the sun like a huge dead whale. The California is sinking deeper into the mud each minute. The West Virginia burns from front to back, her paint melting and falling off in large pieces. Puchita counts the hits. 8 battleships: California, Maryland, Nevada, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Arizona. 8. The whole American battle. Group of the Pacific Fleet is hurt or gone in less than 2 hours. His hands should be steady on the controls, and his heart should feel proud. But instead he feels cold fear inside, because from 10,000 feet, Puchita can see everything. And what? He sees what makes his throat tighten. Is all the targets they missed. The huge repair docks look clean and perfect on the north side. Not one bomb mark. Dry dock number 1 that can lift a battleship out of the water still stands untouched behind it. The submarine base sits fine, its fuel pipes shining in the morning light, every valve and pump ready to serve the 30 or so submarines getting ready to leave. The Americans will go after them tonight, or by tomorrow. His wingman's voice comes through the static. "Commander, should we attack again?" Fua does not answer right away. He looks east at the big round tanks on the hill. They shine in the sun, 4.5 million barrels of oil. The main power for the Pacific Fleet. His pilots flew right past them many times. Not one firebomb dropped. Not one heavy bomb hit those thin walls. One lucky hit. There could have hurt the Americans more than sinking all the ships in the harbor. The thought makes him feel sick inside. Negative, he finally says, "Form up." We go back to the carriers below. The mouth of the harbor is wide open. There are no ships sunk to block the way. No mines placed across the entrance. The Americans can send out every ship, every submarine, every destroyer, every cruiser that survived in just a few hours. By night they will be chasing his group across an ocean, where Japan now has no close bases, no repair spots, nowhere to fix broken ships, except Kurai, 4,000 miles away. A small flash of metal near Ford Island catches his eye. He turns the plane a little and looks hard through the morning haze. More ships. The light cruisers. Detroit and Phoenix are floating. Fine, not even scratched. The heavy cruisers are still tied up safe. The destroyers, repair ships, and fuel ships that keep the American Navy moving across the wide Pacific, all are still fine. All the things that truly give America power on the sea. Everything except the battleships remain unharmed. "Commander." His helper taps his shoulder and points west with a gloved hand. The second attack group is turning back. Puchita watches the last groups of bombers and fighters head home. Their bomb bays empty. 2 attack waves, 183 planes, in the first 167 in the second. 350 planes. Months of hard planning, the boldest carrier strike ever. And still they left America's fighting power mostly safe. The Americans lost 8 battleships, but they have 3 carriers still out at sea. Enterprise, Lexington, and Saratoga. The scouts confirmed before the attack that all 3 were gone. Already moving back fast when the first bombs hit, coming with anger and plans for payback. Puchita remembers his briefing yesterday. Battleships win wars. Destroy. The battleships break American spirit, and they will ask for peace in 6 months. But Fua once studied at Annapolis in 1928, when Japan and America were still friendly. He saw their shipyards, their factories, their car plants in Detroit, making more cars in one day than Japan could make in a month. He tried to tell Admiral Yamamoto's team, America is not like other countries. They have huge strength. But they stopped him, showing secret reports, saying Americans were lazy, weak, and could not take losses. They said once Americans saw their ships burning, they would give up for sure. Fua now steadies his plane, flying on course 315 toward the meeting point, where Akogi waits. His fuel meter shows only 30 minutes left, just enough. Barely through the clear glass. Pearl Harbor grows small behind him. The smoke trail can still be seen for 60 miles. It looks like a funeral mark for American carelessness, but also like a signal that everyone can see from every island, every ship, and every American base across the Pacific. It becomes a call to fight. His radio man was catching American messages during the attack. Their voices were shaking with anger, saying, "This is not a drill. This is not a drill. The Japanese are attacking. Get every plane up. Get everything moving." There was no panic, no confusion, only fast, cold anger. That is what feels wrong to Fua. He thought they would find fear and mess, but instead they found skill and fury. As he climbs higher, he sees the fuel tank farm. One last time, the morning sun makes the huge round tanks shine like bright lights. 4.5 million barrels of oil, enough to power the whole American Pacific Fleet for a month, sitting there untouched. By tomorrow, maybe. Even today, American workers will drain it, move it and hide it in strong bunkers. They will dig and build in just weeks, making it safe forever. That chance is gone because Japanese spies said only battleships matter. Focus on the battleships. Nothing else. Fua thinks of Kurai Navy Yard back home. The heart of Japan's war machine, 40,000 workers building maybe one big warship a month at their best. He remembers reading about Mare Island Navy Yard in San Francisco. Just one American yard, out of many that had 6,000 workers in peacetime, and wonders how many it will have tomorrow. His hands push the throttle forward even though fuel is low. He just wants space, wants the wide ocean between him and that burning harbor. Because, looking down at what they destroyed and what they left untouched, Fua understands something his leaders back home do not. They did not win today. They started a countdown, and Japan does not have enough time. The Hawaiian Islands fade from view. The sky above turns from smoky gray to clear blue. It is perfect. Flying weather, calm and beautiful. The engine hums steady, almost peaceful. Fua closes his eyes for a moment. He sees it all again. The docks still fine. The fuel tanks still there. The open harbor, the missing carriers, and he feels something deep inside. He knows those 2,400 dead Americans are not the end of anything. They are the beginning. Every mother who gets a telegram, every father who loses a son, every wife, child, and friend will spread that pain across a whole nation of 130 million people who woke up this morning in peace. Now they are awake, angry, and together in a way they were not. Yesterday, Japan needed them to stay weak, lazy, and afraid. To fight, Japan needed them to see Pearl Harbor and give up. Instead, Japan gave them heroes. Gave them the Arizona with 1,100 men trapped inside her burning body. Gave them a Sunday morning surprise attack while their diplomats talked peace. In Washington, gave them every reason to hate, to build, to fight, and to keep fighting until Japan burns. Like the Arizona burns, now Fua opens his eyes. Somewhere far ahead over the curve of the earth, the ship Akagi waits with her crew ready to cheer. Admiral Nagumo will be happy. Tokyo will call it a great victory, and even the emperor will praise their bravery. But none of them will see what Fua now sees so clearly. They sank ships, killed men, and hurt a base. But they also woke up something much more dangerous: American will and American industry. The repair docks they left untouched will now run all day and night. The fuel they did not destroy will power the submarines that will hunt Japanese ships. The carriers they missed will send out. The revenge attack. Worst of all, Japan has maybe 6 months or a year before American factories and shipyards drown them in new weapons. Before the shipyards, they did not start making new battleships before the factories in Detroit stop building cars and start building bombers before the sleeping giant fully wakes and remembers how to kill. Fuwa's radio makes a crackling sound. Akagi in sight. Get ready to land. He clicks the button to say he heard and begins to go down to land behind him. Pearl Harbor still burns. Ahead his carrier waits full of cheers and celebration. But none of it changes what he now knows. Japan had one chance to break America, and that chance meant destroying the tools, not just the ships. It meant killing the power to fight, not only hurting their pride. They did the opposite. They left the tools untouched, killed the men, and made heroes instead of real damage. As his plane lands on Akagi's deck, and the crew runs toward him smiling and raising their fists, Fuwa sits still inside his cockpit. The engine goes quiet. Someone opens his cover and shouts, "Congratulations," but he cannot hear them. The sound in his ears is too loud because he still sees it in his mind. The 3 big dry docks, the full fuel, tanks, the open harbor, and the giant waking up. The sun has not even risen yet, but the work lights are already shining at Mare Island Navy Yard. December 10th, 1941. It is 4:47 in the morning. The night crew has started 3 hours early because there are not enough hours anymore, not with the world burning. John DeMarco stands at the edge of dry dock number 2 watching the water rush in. The seawater turns white through the steel gates, and the loud sound covers everything except the alarm that marks another shift change that will not happen for 9 more hours. They stopped the 8-hour shifts 2 days ago. Now everyone works until the job is done. They sleep in bunks right there and wake up when the next ship needs them, just 300 yards away. Behind a fence, Captain Reinosuke Kusaka watches those same lights from his room in the detention center. They call it a cell, but it has a window with glass and a bed, with real sheets. It looks out over Mare Island's South Harbor. Geography's cruel joke. He is locked up with a perfect view of the thing he tried to warn them about. A newspaper sits under his mattress, 3 days old, brought in secretly by a guard whose uncle died on the Arizona. The guard did not bring it to be kind, but to be mean, wanting Kusaka to see the truth. The headline still burns in his eyes, even when he closes them. Mare Island Shipyard, 3 shifts, 24-hour work starting. Tomorrow. But tomorrow is already yesterday. Today is the day he feared. Kusaka had visited Mare Island back in September 1939 as part of a Japanese Navy group. They smiled for photos and took careful notes, pretending to be curious. Tourists. The shipyard had about 6,000 workers then. It was peaceful and calm. Men went home for dinner and came back in the morning. They built mostly submarines, some destroyers and a cruiser every year and a half. Not bad for a smaller yard. He wrote a report, then saying that America had 12 of these yards. 12 Mare Islands spread along both coasts like beads on a string. His bosses in Tokyo just nodded and filed it away, never to read again. The math had seemed like theory then, but now he was watching it become real. The first workers arrive in trucks, their headlights cutting through the early dark. Then buses bring more, a river of men and women walking through gates that never close anymore. He has been counting since 4 o'clock when the lights woke him. He lost track after 2,000 and still more are coming. A woman walks by holding a welder's mask, her hair tied with a red bandana. Another carries a rivet gun on her shoulder like a rifle. Before December 7th, most of these women had been secretaries, teachers, and housewives. Now they are the weapons factory themselves. The article had numbers in it. Kusaka pulled it out from under the mattress and read it again, under the yellow light shining through. His Windermere Island Naval Shipyard to grow to 46,000 workers in 6 months. Work running all day and night in every part of the yard. The report did not list the full goals but said 14 big ships were set for repair in the first 90 days. 14 ships in 90 days. Not building new ones but fixing broken ones. Getting them back into the fight. Kusaka thought about. Kurai Naval Yard. Japan's biggest and best. The pride of the Imperial Navy. Kur had 40,000 workers. At its busiest, running every furnace and dock. It could build maybe 1 large ship a month and repair 3 or 4 damaged ones. If there was no waiting line. Mare Island was just one American shipyard. One of 12, and they were only beginning. He looked out the window and saw a huge crane moving into place over dry dock number 2. The size of it made him feel dizzy. These were not small machines for piecework. These were monsters built to lift battleship guns and move destroyer hulls. Like toys. A guard came in, bringing breakfast, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast with butter and hot coffee. Kusaka looked at it surprised. In 3 days locked up, he had eaten better than in 6 months at sea. The guard saw him staring. Something wrong with the food, he asked. No, Kusaka answered in clear English. It is very good. Yeah, well, the guard said with a shrug. We got plenty. We got plenty. 3 short words that carried a whole truth. After the guard left, Kusaka went back to the window. The sun was rising, painting Mare Island in bright golden light. More and more workers poured through the gates. Trucks came loaded with steel plates, copper wires, rubber parts, all the countless things needed to make a ship live. The movement never stopped. He did the math his commanders should have done back in 1941. Mare Island with 46,000 workers fixing 14 ships in 90 days. 12 Mare Islands means 552,000 workers repairing 160. 8 ships every 3 months. And that was just the Navy yards. Not even counting the business shipyards now turning to war work or the factories changing to make destroyers. Instead of cargo ships, Japan had Kur with 40,000 workers making 1 ship a month only if everything went perfectly. The Americans could lose at Pearl Harbor every month, for a whole year lose every battleship, every cruiser, and still build more ships than Japan ever could. The worst part was Tokyo thought they had won. Kusaka remembered the briefings before Pearl Harbor so full of pride and certainty. Destroy the American battleships, they said, and America will beg for peace. They're too soft, too rich, too lazy. Their democracy can't fight a long war. But from his window, Kusaka saw that same democracy working harder than any empire ever had. He saw a young woman in coveralls climb into a crane, maybe 20 years old, moving like she had done it her whole life. Below her, men measured steel plates for hull patches. Another crew built scaffolding around a submarine tower. Every person moved with purpose, no wasted effort. The whole yard buzzed like a giant machine. These were not soldiers obeying commands. These were free people who chose to be here, who lined up to work, who pushed through exhaustion because they remembered the Arizona burning. That was what Tokyo never understood. You cannot break this kind of will because it is not forced. It is given freely. Kusaka watched until the sun was high. He counted 37 cranes moving at once. 56 welding stations, their bright sparks glowing even in daylight. Trucks rolled in groups of 20. The submarine tender Canopus was being pulled into dry dock number 4, her hull ripped open by bombs at Cavite. The foreman shouted to the workers across the water. 60 days, he said. She'll be back at sea in 60 days. Japan could not even start building a destroyer in 60 days. Kusaka thought about his fellow officers, in Japan celebrating Pearl Harbor, drinking to Nagumo's success, counting the sunken ships like prizes. None of them saw what those 8 destroyed ships had really done. They had made America angry, and anger, Kusaka now knew was the strongest fuel. Of all, it burned hotter than oil, lasted longer than any line of supply. Every worker pouring into Mare Island carried that fire inside them. The rage of a Sunday morning attack. The need to answer betrayal with unstoppable force. Japan had maybe 6 months of oil, maybe a year, if careful. America had 12 Mare Islands running all day and all night, powered by fury that would last for years. The numbers were no longer theory. They were alive outside his window, loud and real, growing toward an ending. Tokyo still refused to see. Kusaka slowly tore the newspaper into thin strips and fed them into the toilet one by one, watching American newsprint dissolve in American plumbing. Some truths were too hard to share. Let his fellow prisoners sleep easy, dreaming of victory. He knew better now. The guards would free him later and send him to a proper P camp inland, away from windows that looked at shipyards, away from the proof. But he had seen enough. Japan had not sunk America's fleet at Pearl Harbor. They had only interrupted a schedule. Watching Mare Island's cranes move in the sunrise, Kusaka knew the difference between those two things, and he knew that difference decided winning or losing a war. The toilet flushed and the last of the paper was gone. Outside, the shipyard kept beating like a heart, relentless and tireless, building toward the answer Pearl Harbor had asked but did not want answered. Lieutenant Teishi Nito stands in water that should not be inside a warship. The Pacific sloshes against his shins, brown with mud and rust flakes. Above him, a damaged bulkhead weeps tiny streams that catch the arc welder's light like liquid fire. The air tastes of metal diesel and something that smells like old paint or trapped seawater. Left USS California. 2 torpedoes and 1 bomb sank her at her moorings on December 7th. Tokyo called her a total loss, permanent. Now Nito stands inside her dead hull, while 3,000 Americans bring her back to life. They brought him to check for unexploded shells, a safety step. Let the Japanese officer mark any live bombs before workers cut into the wrong bulkhead. Nito knows the real reason. This is theater, a kind of reverse psychological war. Look what we can do with your wins. And it works. The pumps never stop. Huge diesel engines deeper in the ship roar and fight the ocean, draining California's flooded rooms faster than the sea can take them back. Nito counts 7 pump stations he can see from this compartment. Each one is bigger than engines on many Japanese destroyers. His escort, a young ensign with Oklahoma dust still on his boots, points to the engine room hatch and says, "We need you forward." Nito follows through passageways he learned from pre-war photos. California-class battleship, 40,000 tons. He had studied her layout for months, finding weak spots and guessing where torpedoes would hit. The knowledge feels wrong now. Walking through the wounds he helped make, they come into a great ruined hull. California's forward engine room opens 3 decks deep. A huge empty space of broken machines and emergency lights. Water stands waist-deep here, even though the pumps run. 2 torpedoes, 1 near the middle. 1 at the back should have stopped her engines forever. Nito sees both holes. Big, jagged gaps where 16-inch steel peeled inward like paper. But that is not what takes his breath away. The crane does. It lowers through the temporary opening. Americans, workers cut in California's deck. A giant hook hangs from cables as thick as a man's thigh. The crane operator, a civilian in a hard hat who probably made refrigerators 6 months ago, moves the hook with calm skill. Workers in the flooded room fasten chains to a smashed reduction gear assembly. Nito knows this part. Every Japanese naval officer does. The reduction gear joins the turbines to the propeller shafts. It is a precise forged piece needing special metalwork and months of machining. Mitsubishi's Yokohama plant makes maybe 4 a year. Each one is priceless, treated like a shrine. The crane operator gets his signal. The cables pull tight. 6 tons of reduction gear lifts free with a scream as bolts shear. Water pours from the broken housing. The crane turns and carries the heavy load toward the deck opening. Nito cannot finish the question in his head. His mouth is dry. Scrap barge, the ensign says, while looking at a clipboard. Total replacement, faster than repair. New unit. Ships from Philadelphia next week. The reduction gear goes through the opening. Nito hears it hit the barge with a hollow metal boom. Philadelphia next week. They throw it away because building a new one is faster than fixing the old. His hands begin to shake. He makes fists to hide it. But the ensign has already moved deeper into the engine room, calling out grid coordinates for unexploded shell checks. Through California's torn hull, Nito can see the harbor. Oklahoma lies capsized 300 yards away. Her bottom, a rust-streaked island. Work barges swarm around her like pilot fish. Even a ship turned over and judged ruined has cutting crews, and salvage teams swarming it. "You good, Lieutenant?" the ensign asks. Seeing Nito's face. "Yes, the lie is automatic. Show me the aft magazine, I need to check shell positions." They go deeper into California's guts. Nito does his job marking where Japanese shells are with chalk, so American workers will not cut into anything explosive. The irony crushes him. He is helping them bring back to life the ship he helped to kill. In the back magazine rooms, he finds more proof of the huge difference. Damaged 3-inch shells. American anti-aircraft ammo lies scattered where seawater messed up their storage. A work crew shovels them into bins. Hundreds of rounds treated like coal. How many shells? Nito stops counting after 300. Rejected lot, a chief petty officer says, thinking Nito is just curious. Saltwater damage, we will melt them down. Make new brass, rejected. Melted recast words that do not even exist in Japanese Navy work. Back home, damaged shells are dried, checked, fixed. Nothing gets thrown away because nothing can be replaced fast. Here, spoiled shells turn into scrap metal. On a Tuesday afternoon, 2 hours later, up on deck, Nito stands on California's tilted deck, while his guard talks with a salvage boss. The harbor spreads before him like a picture of busy, fiery industry. Nevada sits beached at Hospital Point. Her front end looks like a construction site full of workers. West Virginia's top parts rise from the water pump hoses running into her like feeding tubes. The huge concrete repair dock he saw in spy photos already holds Pennsylvania. Her torpedo, holes getting fixed day and night. Repair Dock 1 untouched on December 7th. Fuchida's pilots never hit it. Nito remembers the orders. Secondary target focus on battleships. They made the docks less important. Now those docks eat Japanese victories. Like a machine. We will have California in dry dock 2 within 14 days. The boss says loud enough for Nito to hear calm and sure, like he is talking about grocery deliveries, back in full service by April. April. 4 months from sinking to ready. Again, the boss sees Nito listening. Smiles. Not mean, just confident. You guys did good work on her, but not good enough. He pats the ensign on the shoulder. Take our guest back to detention. We are done here. The small boat crosses the harbor toward the prison near Hospital Point. Nito sits at the back watching California fade. Her pumps still roar. Her crews still move. Even damaged, she uses more men and material in one afternoon than a Japanese repair yard sees in months. And California is just one ship in one harbor of one navy. That night in the detention building, Nito takes out the small notebook his guards let him keep. The empty page waits. He opens his pen, a cheap American one made of plastic. Not metal thrown away when done. Like everything here, built to be replaced. His hand moves slow and neat across the page. We did not sink their fleet. We only stopped their schedule. He looks at the line, then adds more. California total loss, back to war in 4 months. How many months? To build one Japanese battleship. 3648. We trade years for their weeks. The building is quiet except for the faraway pump sound from the harbor. A steady machine heartbeat that never stops. Somewhere out there, California keeps rising. Under bright floodlights, American workers on night shift doing what NATO's leaders said could not be done. He thinks about the heavy reduction gear, 6 tons of perfect metal dropped on a scrap barge like trash. He thinks about Cure Naval Yard, where that same part would be treated like holy treasure, fixed for months by careful hands. He thinks about the numbers that should have ended on December 7th. NATO closes the notebook. Outside, the pumps still run, through smoke from 3 carriers. Yamaguchi watches the Americans coming. They come in groups 12. Dauntless bombers from Enterprise, 8. From Yorktown, more from Hornet. The sky fills with them, slow, awkward planes that turn into deadly angels. When they dive, Yamaguchi has seen many battles, but never this. The careful destruction of the Kido Butai, the proud carrier force that ruled the Pacific 6 months ago from Hawaii to Ceylon. Akagi burns first, the ship that launched Fuchida's planes at Pearl Harbor, now a giant. Fire Kaga follows minutes later, her deck blowing apart as bombs ignite her hangar. Soryu, the 3rd Pearl Harbor carrier, takes 4 direct hits in the middle. She will sink in 20 minutes. Now it is Hiryu's turn. The first bomb hits at 5:03 in the afternoon. Yamaguchi feels it through his boots. A shockwave runs up the ship's spine, shaking every rivet. The second bomb lands 14 seconds later right on the front elevator, the big platform made to lift 18-ton planes. Between decks vanishes, leaving a burning hole to hell. Fire bursts from the hangar. A young aide runs up with reports. Flooding in 3 rooms, fire lines cut. Steering is damaged, the kind of hit that would sink any Japanese carrier within an hour. But Yamaguchi isn't thinking about Hiryu now. He's thinking about Yorktown. Through his binoculars, he stares at her CV-5. The carrier his own intelligence said was sunk at Coral Sea 3 weeks ago. He'd read the reports himself. 1 bomb. Hit, heavy fires, big list pulling back from the fight. The experts said 3 months in repair, maybe 6. More likely written off. Too broken, too costly when America could just build new. But Yorktown is here, launching another wave. Her deck crew moves. Fast and sure, loading bombs, sending planes into the smoky sky. No delay, no damage. She looks brand new. 72 hours. That's what Yamaguchi will learn later from captured papers and post-war reports. Pearl Harbor's repair docks, the ones Fuchida didn't bomb, worked day and night. 1,400 men in 3 shifts. They fixed a bombed-out carrier in the time it would take Cure to make spare parts. They didn't rebuild her completely. Just enough seal. The hull, bring back power. Make her fight again. They treated a fleet carrier like a truck. Patch it, fuel it. Send it back. Real repairs later if she lived. If not, they'd build another. The 3rd bomb hits Hiryu's bridge. Yamaguchi staggers but doesn't fall. Around him, officers grab for balance as the ship shakes. Fire bursts from the map room. Someone screams. The radio man disappears in flame. His last words to the fleet: burn away through the smoke. Yamaguchi sees the battle board. Someone marked it before dying. 4 red X's. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. Every main carrier of the 1st Air Fleet gone in 1 afternoon. Lost to Enterprise, Hornet, Yorktown. All 3 still alive, still striking. Still fighting. The numbers crush him. This is what Pearl Harbor was supposed to stop. Japan's 10 carriers against America's 7A slim edge, but enough. The attack was meant to cut that to 10 against 4, buying Japan 18 months, to build defenses across the Pacific. To make the plan was to make the cost of taking back the Pacific so high that America would ask for peace. Instead, Japan got 6 months. 6 months. between Pearl Harbor and this graveyard floating dead off Midway. 6 months of American anger turned into steel and ships, and the carriers keep coming. Yamaguchi knows their names now like a man waiting for his own end. Essex, Independence, Princeton names painted on ships that don't even exist yet, but are already being built from New York to San Francisco. His reports come weekly. American shipyards, 27 Essex-class fleet carriers, 8 light carriers. Dozens of escort carriers all started before or just after Pearl Harbor. The first Essex will be ready in 9 months. By next year they'll launch one big carrier every month faster. Then Japan can build destroyers. Japan's answer, one ship Shinano, a converted Yamato hull. She won't touch water for 2 years, won't fight for 3. By then America will have 15 new carriers. Captain Kaku comes through the smoke. His face, burned, sir, fires out of control. We must move your flag. Yamaguchi speaks calmly like a man who already knows he's dead. I will stay with the ship. Kaku looks shocked. Sir, tell me something. Captain Yamaguchi points at Yorktown through the haze. How many men does it take to fix a carrier in 3 days? Kaku stares, lost. Sir, I don't know. 1,400, 3 shifts non-stop. Yorktown was supposed to be in dry dock till August, but here she is, killing us in June. He pauses. We're not fighting a Navy captain. We're fighting a factory. The deck starts to tilt 20 degrees. 25, Hiryu is dying. Abandon ship. Kaku begs him. Sir, please. Yamaguchi pulls away around them. Men rush to the rails, to the rope nets, to the cold Pacific he watches. Them go young officers, skilled men trained for years, the kind Japan can't replace. There's no reserve, no training system deep enough to make more. America has colleges full of engineers, high schools teaching navigation, and a civilian plane. Industry bigger than Japan's Navy factories. Military production lines, schools, workshops. America can replace every pilot lost here in just weeks. Japan will need years through the smoke. Yamaguchi sees Enterprise launching again. Small planes. SBD. Dauntlesses, TBD, Devastators, slow old weak by Japanese standards. But there are so many of them. And when they fall, America just builds more. The meaning of Pearl Harbor becomes clear in his mind. You can't sink an idea. You can't torpedo a factory. You can't bomb a democracy's will. Japan sank 8 battleships and killed 2,400 men. And in return, America built a fleet bigger than all of Japan's navy. And they built it faster than Japan could fix what it already had, water. Rises around Yamaguchi's knees. Hiru sinks lower. Her death coming quietly. Most of her crew gone, a few stubborn ones still below. Fighting fires, trying to pump water, doing their duty, till the sea takes them. Yamaguchi wipes his binoculars and looks one last time at the American carrier's Enterprise, already landing planes. Yorktown steady in formation, her impossible repair showing everything Japan got wrong. Hornet turns into the wind for another launch. Yorktown will die tonight. Japanese subs will finish her. But Yamaguchi knows it doesn't matter. 2 new Essex-class ships were started just last week by the time Yorktown sinks. Her replacements are already growing. The water reaches his chest, colder than he expects for the Pacific. Hiru leans over, 40 degrees now, beyond saving. Captain Kaku stands beside him. He didn't leave either, they face the end together. Was it worth it? Kaku asks softly. Pearl Harbor, Yamaguchi remembers. Fuchida circling over the burning Arizona, the Oklahoma turning over the beauty and horror of perfect attack. Then he thinks about what they didn't destroy, the repair docks, the fuel tanks, the factories. They left out submarines and most of all the 3 carriers that were not there. We had 6 months, Yamaguchi says. From December to June, that was the price of our mistake. The water reaches his throat. He hears her groans. metal tearing rooms flooding. She will take 400 men with her. 400 sailors who cannot be replaced. Specialists and fighters. America will replace them with factory workers. Women who never saw the sea now welding hull plates. College boys learning navigation from books. A democracy turning everyone toward war. That was what Japanese spies never understood. Free people do not fight harder than imperial subjects, but they build faster, they design better, and they keep making new things, because the American who builds a better radar or improves a dive bomber gets promoted, gets money, and gets praised. The Japanese engineer who changes things risks breaking the production schedule, risking shame. The water covers Yamaguchi's mouth. He tilts his head back and takes one last breath of smoky air. His last view is Enterprise turning into the wind, her deck full of planes ready to launch another strike. By the time she lands those planes, you and I will be gone. The Kido, Butai will be gone. Japan's carrier lead will be gone. But America's factories will still run 3 shifts. 4 hours building the fleet that will show up off Tokyo in 3 years and demand unconditional surrender. Yamaguchi lets the water take him and understands too late what Fuchida knew right away. They woke a sleeping giant. Zenji Abe watches a paper float on the oily water like white against black. He remembers 70 years of Arizona's slow bleeding. His hands shake, not from old age, but from memory. It is 1985 in a conference room at the Hilton Hawaiian Village. The lights are harsh. On folding tables, Joseph Langell sits across from him. He is 73, an Arizona survivor. Abe stares at his hand for 15 seconds, which feels like 15 years. This man pulled 47 sailors from burning oil while Abe's bomb 500 kilograms hit the forward magazine and turned the ship into a crematorium. Langell keeps his hand out, patient with no hate, only curiosity. Abe took his hand. The handshake felt like touching live electricity. I was there, Langell said quietly. Turret 4. The blast threw me 60 feet into the water. I dropped the bomb through your deck, Abe said in broken English. I killed your friends. Yeah. Langell nodded. He did not let go of Abe's hand. You did. You want to tell me why? And Abe, who had spent 40 years avoiding, December 7th started to talk. He explained the propaganda, the belief that Americans were soft-spoiled by comfort, that they would surrender after one hard hit, the reports that said sinking the battleships would break their spirit. Langell listened, then laughed. Not mean, just tired and knowing soft, he said, shaking his head. Son, you made every factory worker in America want to kill you. Every farm boy, every store clerk, every mother. You brought us together like nothing else could. They had dinner that night. Langell introduced him to 6 other Arizona survivors, men who should have hated him. Instead, they asked questions. What were you thinking at 10,000 feet? Did you know the carriers were gone? Did Japanese spies really think America would give up? One man, Ray Emery, showed Abe a picture, Mare Island Naval Shipyard. December 1941. Women with welding torches. 3 shifts running 24 hours. The caption said, 46,000 workers in 6 months. We didn't just fix ships, Emery said. We built a new navy while we fixed the old one. You sank California, we raised her in 98 days. Yorktown was hit at Coral Sea. Should have been out for months. We patched her in 72 hours and sent her to Midway. Abe did the math. Japan's whole Navy yard could not match one American yard. You thought Pearl Harbor was the end, Langell said softly. It was our starting gun. Now Abe comes every year. He puts paper cranes in the water, reads the names on the memorial wall, all 1,177, and talks to school groups when they ask, mostly Japanese students, kids who need to understand. A park ranger walks up a young woman with kind eyes. Mr. Abe, those students are ready when you are. He nods, takes a breath, and turns toward 15 teenagers from Hiroshima, notebooks in hand, faces serious with the weight of history. Let me tell you. Let me tell you about 3 things we didn't destroy on December 7th, 1941. He begins in Japanese. The park ranger translates into English for the small group of American visitors gathered around. And why did those 3 things destroy us? The students lean forward, curious. First, the repair docks. All 3 completely untouched. We sank ships but left the machines to raise them fully intact. California, West Virginia, Nevada, all back in service. We gave them 90 days of inconvenience and thought we had won. A student raises her hand. What about the fuel? 4.5 million barrels right there, Abe says, pointing to the eastern hills visible from the memorial. 1 good bombing run there, and Japan could have controlled the Pacific for 6 months while America rebuilt supply lines. We flew right past it, focused on the glorious targets, the battleships, ignoring the logistics that make navies work. He pauses, remembering Commander Fua's face in the ready room after the attack, the forced smile that never reached his eyes. But the worst mistake, the carriers, Enterprise, Lexington, Saratoga, all at sea, all hunting us by nightfall. We destroyed old battleships and left America's future fleet untouched. 6 months later at Midway, those carriers sank Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. The entire Kido Butai dead. Japan's elite carrier force traded for just 1 American carrier. 1. Why? A boy in the back asks, his voice breaking slightly. Why did our intelligence not know? Abe closes his eyes. The question he has asked himself for 50 years. Because we believed our own propaganda. We told ourselves Americans were soft, individualistic, unable to sacrifice. We calculated their industrial capacity but dismissed it. Thought democracies couldn't mobilize like empires. He opens his eyes. Pearl Harbor proved us wrong in the worst possible way. The ranger asks, "What do you mean?" A democracy at peace looks weak because its strength is potential, not yet deployed. The factories, the workers, the will to sacrifice, all existed before December 7th. We didn't destroy American capability. We activated it. He gestures to the memorial, to the names, to the oil still seeping. These 177 men didn't die defeating us. They died unifying America. Every war bond sold. Every woman who took a factory job. Every round-the-clock shift at the shipyards. All of it traced back to this morning. We killed Americans on a Sunday without declaration, without warning, and made them outraged instead of cautious. 1 girl is crying quietly. Abe knows that weight. He carries it himself. I meet with the survivors every year, he says softly. They have forgiven me. I have not forgiven myself. But I come here to remember, because memory is the only thing that prevents repetition. He takes another crane from his jacket pocket, folded from a page of his own diary. December 7th, 1941. Written in exultant Japanese about victory. I was wrong that day. Wrong about America. Wrong about war. Wrong about what makes nations strong. He places the crane on the memorial railing. Free people work harder than slaves. Countries that build for peace can outbuild anyone fighting for conquest. Japan learned this in fire. I come here to remember the cost of forgetting. The students bow. The ranger thanks him. Visitors who overheard nod solemnly, but Abe keeps watching both cranes float above Arizona's tomb. Somewhere below in the dark water, 177 men remain at their posts. Men he killed, men who, in dying, awakened something Japan couldn't defeat, with all the carriers and battleships and warrior spirit in the Pacific. Joseph Langell died in 2015. Ray Emery in 2016. One by one, the men who forgave him are going. Soon, Abe will be the last witness to both the attack and the reconciliation. He speaks to Arizona directly, words in English now learned painstakingly over decades. I am sorry. I carry you all. I will carry you until I die. The wind shifts. Both cranes drift toward the submerged hull. White on black. Forgiveness on grief. Behind him, The Japanese students photograph the memorial. Tomorrow they'll write essays about the mistake, about hubris, about the mathematics of will versus steel. Some will become teachers, peace advocates, bridge builders. Abe taught them well. The sleeping giant Japan awakened in 1941 wasn't American industry, though that proved devastating enough. It was something deeper, the unified fury of free people choosing war. That force, once roused, built 27 carriers while Japan built one, raised total loss battleships in weeks, turned scrap metal into new fleets. Pearl Harbor didn't destroy American capability. It ended American patience. Abe watches the cranes disappear into the oil slick, then slowly walks back toward the shore. His translator badge catches the sun. Tomorrow he'll speak at another school. The day after, another group of survivors. His pilgrimage of witness continues until memory itself becomes the memorial. The water laps against Arizona's hull. The oil seeps, the names remain, and one old pilot who made the biggest mistake in history keeps returning to count the cost.